I don't recognize motivation as a magic pill that suddenly has to come before I take action. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. I see it as a sign of strength, that you actually are highly self-aware of what issues you are facing or what barriers or limiting the beliefs you have about certain things. My name is Anahita Amirpour. I'm a PhD student at Karolinska Institutet, and my PhD project is about cognitive recovery and cognitive decline after surgery. I think there are several myths, but one of the most prominent ones is that you have to work all the time, like every day, without taking breaks, overworking 24/7. And that is kind of a myth I'm working against myself, because I don't do that at all. I highly value my free time and my time outside my PhD work, because I mean, PhDing is obviously part of my life, but I have other aspects of my life that I also consider are important to me. I think since I've been working clinically like 10 years before I started to do my PhD, I think I have that type of mentality from working, basically, because it is important to kind of be off work when you're not working, even if there were kind of different or difficult cases at the hospital sometimes, you know, patients weren't feeling well or something traumatic happens. Obviously, sometimes you take work home, you know, but I think I learned the hard way that it can be quite difficult if you continue with always thinking about work when you're supposed to be present with your loved ones or doing things you enjoy, like exercising or reading books or whatever, right? So I think that kind of being on and being off, I kind of learned that from working. So when I was studying to get my specialist degree in nurse anesthesia, I found it very interesting, the whole field about, you know, pain, anesthesia and surgery and so on. So I really wanted to do something more than just work with it. So after like 1 year after working clinically, after I got my specialist degree, I wanted to do research. So I reached out myself to a professor at KI and said, I'm interested to do research work. How can I do this? So I was pretty much kind of showing that I was interested and I wanted to do something. But then it took me a few years before I actually got the position. So I was admitted to my program in 2021. So I reached out in 2018, I think, the first time. But even if I didn't get the position right away, I did some research assistant job on the side to kind of just get an insight about how it is, what research is, because if you're not inside the academic world, it's kind of difficult from the outside to understand what it is about, right? I think overall, when you have a very rigid vision about what you want to do and can't be kind of flexible with that, I think it tends to be much more difficult for you when you get a rejection or so on. But I know what I value. I value a lot my curiosity to learn things, and I can learn things even if I'm not a researcher, right? So I learned tons of things when I was working as a consultant. So that was something that I kind of could do even if I wasn't doing research. But then I really wanted to do research as well, so I prioritized applying for a position. What is like your inner drive? What's it about? So for me, it's discovering new knowledge. For me, it's curiosity and learning things, and it's been like that since I was a kid, basically. So for me, I've been doing that in many different ways, even if I haven't been doing research, right? I think the biggest change was for me that I didn't have a specific location to do my work, meaning the hospital, and also having a schedule where I work shifts, right? So when you're PhDing, you are the boss of your own time, and that is very difficult to kind of manage your own time. I think that is why a lot of us struggle with kind of procrastinating, you know, and kind of having these deadlines. Because when you're bossing over your own time, you need to be your own schedule maker. and that puts a lot of responsibility on yourself. So that kind of shift from going to from a shift work at the hospital to doing my work whenever I wanted in academia was very difficult to kind of adjust myself, and was a lot of trial and errors before I got it in a way that I was comfortable with, and I felt that I can do this. Because in the beginning I had no boundaries. I was working weekends, checking my email constantly, having that type of stress in the background of my head, it was kind of disturbing me from doing things that I really wanted to do besides research, I don't know if I had one aha moment. I think I've had a lot of aha moments throughout my career, because I've always been I have to do this type of person, and working very intensively and hectic. I think when I got my burnout after I was working at the COVID ICU at the hospital, I realized this type of lifestyle or the way of working or whatever, it's not sustainable for me, not from my health, and not also in a career-wise perspective, because I want to work until I'm older and not just stop working now, because I'm exhausted. So I think that was like my biggest wake-up call, I think, when I got my burnout. I think one important thing is to kind of take a step back and pause, what type of life do you want to live? What type of person do you want to be? Because ultimately we all want to, when we are old and we don't have much left to live, that's usually when we reflect on that. But I think we can reflect on that when we are young too. What type of life do I want to live, right? And do I want to spend time with my loved ones or prioritize my family? Or maybe it is my hobbies or anything else that you highly value or have a passion for in life, right? And reflect on that. And then you can also look on how is that actually aligned with how I want it to be versus how it actually is. And then you can also take action and take action in the direction that you want. That helps you live this type of more meaningful and rich life than just overworking, right? And the second thing is to kind of recognize your boundaries. I know a lot of us haven't been taught that since a young age, that what boundaries are. But I think kind of recognizing and learning what they are, what do I want to do? Or what do I do not want to do? And kind of knowing what that is kind of makes it a lot more easier to decline people's requests or say, no, I can't, or no, I am busy, or no, I am not interested. Because saying no and being kind of assertive is like a life skill, I think, is very important to have, not only in your career, but also in your personal relationships, right? I get writer's block myself, so what I usually do is to always put kind of realistic writing goals for myself. And sometimes I just leave my office space, or if I'm working from home, and do something completely else, to kind of activate other parts of my brain that is not you have to produce, you have to finish this section or this paragraph. Kind of reconnecting with things that I find playful, play a game with friends or go out exercising, to just do something else. Because I usually get writer's block when I've been overworking or when I've been writing a lot. So my head is it feels like it's blank in there. I have nothing more to say. So kind of just shifting and changing the environment and doing something completely else usually helps. And another thing that I found help is kind of warming up before writing. So kind of treat the writing as a sport, as an athletic activity. You warm up before, you kind of warm up your writing muscles before actually writing. So kind of set a timer on 5 minutes and then do different free writing exercises. Can also be helpful. I think a lot of people reckon motivation is something that suddenly comes and then you're able to actually do things you want or take action. But for me, I don't recognize motivation as a magic pill that suddenly has to come before I take action. For me, motivation comes with taking action and doing things that matters to me, like doing my research work or meeting my friends or, or any other things that I enjoy, right? So the motivation comes with the action itself, and it's not a feeling that I have to wait for before I actually take a step forward, And I think kind of shifting that mindset is very helpful, because a lot of people get stuck because they are waiting to feel in a certain way before they do something. So they let their feelings dictate their behavior. But I know that if you take action and behave in a certain way that you want, that is important to you, the feelings will come afterwards or during, when you're doing it, yeah. Yeah, so when I'm at the office, I have my own space, and I'm very happy for that, because I am easily disturbed by noise and sound. So when I'm working, like I'm doing deep work and like doing one task at a time with my full attention, I do not socialize in the meantime. But if I want to socialize with my colleagues, I do that in the breaks or during the lunch breaks. But when I'm at my office and doing my deep work schedule, I'm just doing that. And I if I want to hang out with the colleagues, I schedule it instead of just chatting away the day, right? Because ultimately I am there to do my work, and I can socialize whenever, right? So that is usually how I do it. I think it plays a big role, networking, not only with the people in my cohort, like in the research school, but also I've been active in the Doctoral Students Association and like hanging out with and meeting international PhD students and kind of get to learn about their struggles and what they're facing when they're moving here and doing their PhD. And also getting to know senior researchers as well is also very important to kind of learn from their experiences. And also having mentors, I think, is very important in academia, to kind of reach out and say, hey, like I enjoy your work, or I think you can teach me a lot, and I have this to offer to you, to kind of take action and show that you're interested in getting a mentor. I think that is very important. And also obviously going to conferences and going to research seminars, there's also one way of kind of connecting and networking in person. So I've been interested in communication for a while, and before I was doing PhD work, I had like a podcast, but I was kind of, and it was in Swedish, and it was about, emergency care and like how it is to kind of be anesthetized. So it was more about scientific communication for the public, but also those who are working in the healthcare sector. But I really enjoy kind of communicating, and at first I wanted to do kind of a SciComm account, but then I realized maybe I'm not in the position to do that right now, because I want to focus on other things that are important, not for me, but also to other students. And the more I read and the more I talked to students, PhD students in the beginning, I realized, wow, there's a huge issue here that hasn't kind of been addressed a lot in the online community, but also outside the community, in the actual academia. So there is where I found like the first idea to kind of shift from doing SciComm to doing actually give value to the students, because ultimately we are the ones, if we choose to stay in academia, to become professors. So if we learn from the beginning to kind of have boundaries, communication skills, and to kind of beat procrastination, it will be much more easier in the future perspective when you are kind of advancing in your career, to know what you're doing, and also to be a good mentor and a role model for your own PhD students afterwards, right? So I think the skills that I am trying to kind of teach people is not only valuable here and now when you're getting your doctoral degree, but also for afterwards when you're a doctor, and what you choose to do with your career after that. I haven't thought like I really want to do this or I really don't want to do this, but I know that I want to do some sort of research work in the future. I'm not sure how or when, but I also really want to continue doing my coaching with my clients. So not only working with PhD students, but also other individuals who are very high achieving, because that type of patterns are kind of similar, not only in the academic world. So I really want to kind of expand my coaching work. Before I became a coach, I never asked anyone for help. So I always kind of struggled in silence and tried to do and solve my problems by myself. And that is very demanding. It drains a lot of energy, and it sometimes can be extremely difficult to kind of manage your different situations that is challenging for you by yourself. So I think having an external supporter, like a mentor or a coach, kind of releases that type of burden, because asking for help is not a sign of weakness. I see it as a sign of strength, that you actually are highly self-aware of what issues you are facing or what barriers or limiting the beliefs you have about certain things, right? And having someone who is a coach or a mentor can kind of help you guide yourself, right? So a coach is about kind of expanding your toolbox. You get more tools, and then you implement them on your own, because ultimately it's up to you what you want to do with your own life or your situation, right? So I think that is why I find coaching so important, and also why I have a coach myself or mentors, because I gain so much from it, not only on a personal level but also career-wise. I think, well, the first one is to kind of, I don't know if it's a skill, but knowing what your boundaries are when they start and stop is a great thing to know. Assertiveness is also a second skill that is very valuable, to kind of be assertive when you're communicating and not kind of being avoidant, or kind of avoiding communicating with your supervisors or your research group, you know. So those are very important, I think. The third one, if you want to kind of reach out with your research work and your project, and not only to your group but in your own institution, I think it's a good skill to have, to know how to communicate that. Scientific communication, I think, is very important as well. But that also depends on what is important to you, right? If you find that your research work should be kind of more out in the general public, then learning skills and tools of how to communicate your science is great. Like using different type of media, writing like debate articles in a newspaper, you know? I think everyone who is a high-achieving individual in academia, outside academia, experience imposter syndrome. It's normal and it's natural to have it, that you doubt yourself. And I think it doesn't matter if you're a professor or a PhD student, we all experience imposter syndrome in one way or another, right? I think overall, with difficult feelings or when we have difficult thoughts, it's important for us to kind of acknowledge that they're there, so we do not try to get rid of unwanted feelings or unwanted thoughts, because I think that is actually part of the problem and not part of the solution. So kind of acknowledging that it's there, like noticing and naming. So kind of like acknowledging that critical Anahita is like talking in the background, and kind of being aware that, okay, it's just a story that I'm telling myself all the time. To kind of acknowledge that the thought is there. I think that is one first step, to kind of distance yourself and separate yourself from your actual thought, because thoughts are just thoughts. They're not hard facts, right? So I think that is one of the greatest mindset skills that we can do. And the second thing, when we have noticed and named that thought coming up, or the feeling, like I'm feeling tense in my body, my heart is pounding, I'm doubting myself, you know, all these things. The second thing is to kind of get back into your body, to kind of connect with your body and kind of engage in what you're doing. So redirecting your attention to what you're doing here now. And that is like a mindfulness skill, right? Because whenever we are kind of on the autopilot, like I'm zoning out and I'm avoiding things, that is, in the long term, it can lead to a lot of problems for you, right? And it doesn't really, and it kind of moves you away from living a meaningful life as well, to kind of avoid people and avoid activities that you in reality enjoy a lot, right? So I think noticing and naming the thought and the feeling, connecting with your body and then engaging what you're doing here and now is a very valuable mindset skill. And these tools or skills is all about practice. It's not like you do it one time and then it's gone, right? That's not how it works. So if you want to learn to kind of learn mindfulness skills, we have to practice them a few minutes per day, you know? So it's not like from one day to another and you've been a professional mindfulness instructor. That's not really how it works, even if we wanted to.